Hi, I just wanted to make another audio recording here of some tools that I used in the classroom for assessment preparation and helping me with, and we use these school-wide, I should say, not just for me, but we use them in reading and math as predictors for where the students will fall on AYP or where their weaknesses were in preparing for assessments. This form is a Excel form that identifies the year, the topic here. Accommodated students are highlighted here. I did take the names and so forth off of the students. Um, and you could put accommodations with in whatever teacher or accommodations with another teacher, and or if they're not tested, you would see an asterisk, and you'll not see any of that in this. But what we have here is it would list the homeroom of the teacher, the last name of the teacher, or the homeroom of the with the teacher's name here, the last name of the student, first name of the student, and then which subgroup they were listed in. Are they in all students, ELL, Hispanic subgroup, free reduced, AYP count, or not? Some students wouldn't count for AYP. You might see, well, like this first one is counted in all students, free and reduced, and does count for AYP. Does count for AYP means they were enrolled by September 20th and they hadn't left or withdrawn during the time from September 20th to the opening of the testing window. If they should withdraw, which we usually would withdraw a student if they were gone for 10 days or more, and that way they had to re-enroll. Well, if they re-enroll, then they're not counted on AYP, and this box would have not been X'd. So that kind of gives you an idea. The 09, 010 assessment, it would have a score here, and then whether they were proficient in 09 or 010 would also their proficiency level, academic warning, it would state it there. Then they would have a formative average, and you would start this for the current year. They would give the first formative the first week of school, and then start breaking that down, and they'd list their scores here with a class average at the bottom, and you would see a class average. Then they would break it down to the narrative one. They would give that, and usually about every week. Expository one, which would be your factual books, and listed here, and then technical, which would be a step-by-step process where they're reading something and it's giving them directions and they're having to understand that. And then persuasive, they're being persuaded to do something. Then that goes to the second set of tests, and then the third set of tests with an average. Over here at the side, the broken down benchmarks for each tested indicator are here, and then the tests, whether it be narrative 1, expository 1, are given. Now if there's a blank line, a dash here, it means they did not pass that indicator, and that kind of gives a teacher an idea of which students they need to work on. You can kind of see some patterns here of this first indicator. I have one here that's pretty, has a lot of dashes if you look all the way down. So that would be an indicator. I would go to 1.34, word structure. I'd work on that. And once again, a lot of ELL students here, so you would have a lot of vocabulary issues. Another one here, this one, text structure, and that would be one that I would work on. But then I'd also compare the N1 with N2 and see if they improved, and if they did improve, then I wouldn't be quite as concerned. This looks like a good indicator. A little bit of a grouping here. I might work with these two students, maybe another one here, but it kind of gives me an idea, a visual to look at and see where my holes are and the student grouping that I need to work on. But as you can see, it breaks it down to all the different types of benchmarks with the actual benchmark number that you would see. Now, you could take the benchmark number enter that into a program called CETE, which we looked at, and you can pull up that benchmark number and make a 5 or 10 question test and reassess them on that and see if they've improved. So it was very detailed, very guided by the data, and the teachers knew exactly where their students needed to progress. Now you can see here there was a lot of dashes here at the beginning for N1, but look here at the end, you're seeing it open, so there's an improvement. So I wouldn't worry about that one as much because I'm seeing improvement from the beginning to the end. And you can follow that all the way through all of these. Plot as the last one. You have N1, N2, and N3, which plot would be a characteristic for a narrative text and setting and character. So you're not going to see those in the persuasive, technical, and expository text. So those would be very specific to a narrative. The fact opinion is also very common for the expository and persuasive text, so you wouldn't see that in a narrative text. So you can kind of see your patterns here that you need to look at. Now from there you go to the bottom below that and you would see the next class. So they would group all of the classes together, and you would have a percentage here from the class that was previously listed with their percent of proficient students, and you could pretty much look and see across the board who's going to make it and who's not. Probably this 49 is a doubtable one, but if you look here, it's not an ELL student, so they don't qualify for ELL, and this one did. So there's just a lot of things that you can look at. You can see their score from the previous year, whether they met the standard academic warning. This tells me the student didn't make it the previous year, so it's not looking as if we follow through this year, continue along, and it looks like maybe they just had taken that narrative 1 or they hadn't entered the narrative 2 scores in yet, but a lot of students were missing that first one. So I would probably cover context clues and word structure again. Once again, that word structure is back to vocabulary. Huge issue with language learners. And as you go along here, you continue to look at all the same things. Compare and contrast. Look at that. That's a great result here. So probably the teacher can predict that they're going to pass the compare and contrast part. Text structure, same way. Drawing conclusions. And then what you can do is look at the teacher and say, what did you do to prepare your students for this? They've done really well, and maybe it doesn't look like they've taken that part, but let's say they did really well, and ask her, what did you do? Well, then let's switch classes a couple afternoons, and would you teach my students drawing conclusions? And they look at the other teacher's data, and well, look, you did a good job with text structure, so would you teach my students text structure and I'll take yours, and do some team teaching and some collaboration amongst each other as teachers to help strengthen your testing grades. Then you go to the third class here and you have the same thing again, and you're still going to look at those students from the previous year, whether they made AYP or not. This one doesn't have the marking, so you have some meet standards, some exemplaries, so there's some real strengths in here, but it looks like there's one that didn't meet the standard. So you've got some pretty good results here. So you got a few areas that you'll want to focus on those students, but this is just kind of a tool that I wanted to share with you that we used, and we did it at all grade levels so that they knew the data for the student, and then from here we took this information and put it on a language plan. And if this ELL student here was kind of a borderline, maybe I think they had to have 74 last year in reading, so you're 72, so you could be an iffy one whether the student passes. Well, then we'd want to look and see, do they need a read aloud, do they need tested in a separate location with accommodations only, and the accommodations are things you can add to the test that would adapt it for extra time, the location of the test, a read aloud only to read the test questions and the answer stems, not the passage if it's reading. In math, they could read the answer question and answer stems, but not any passages. And your reader was trained. Your reader has a script that they can read from, and they can't point to the screen. Like if I was working with the test and I was using this cursor as my finger, I couldn't point and read to the student and say, well, this is your chart over here. You can't do that. So the reader had to sit to the side of the student, read from a script, and it was very guided and very structured. So, but you would use these results to kind of see, what do we need to do for this student? Is there some test anxiety? Then maybe we put them on just a student success plan, and we give them a buddy, and this buddy is another maybe the janitor in the school, and maybe he eats lunch with them once a week to kind of pump them up for the test and gives them some real motivating little encouragement word note cards throughout the week, and just really preps them up, and just that extra little friend of encouragement. So that would be a perfect example right there. This one could also be the same way. It could go down, but you'd want to make sure and just kind of follow and see where it fits. This one's rather low. You might need some real interventions there. It's not to say these students can't make it. It's just saying that they're quite a ways from 74. They're going to have to kick it in gear. So those are going to have to be things that you're going to have to find looking at the data over here to the side. What is it that this student lacks? Looks like a lot here with the word structure. Again, it's back to vocabulary. This one, text structure a little bit. This isn't too bad, but text features, we had a missed here, and at the again we're missing. So there's some improvement on some of this, but this one still is an improvement. So I would probably focus on text features and see what I could do to improve that. And then go down the list here. Here's another 68. That's pretty close. If you can fix 2 or 3 and tell the student, last year you made a 68. If you would have only answered 3 more questions, you would have made it. So you set a goal with the student that, look, we have this area that you're having some struggle with on text structure. Let's put you in a study group and let's focus on text structure and see if we can master that. This one's the same way. I might put the 2 of them together in a group, and maybe somebody else that's stronger, let them help teach them about text structure. These 2 had some improvement on text structure, so I wouldn't worry about it as much, but this one here had some areas for drawing conclusions also. So, you can start some different type of intervention groups, kind of like your Tier 3 and your MTSS, where you're going to really focus on those remediation times and help that student gain their knowledge from other students and give them some remediation time with you. So that's just kind of a tool, looking at your data and letting your data drive your instruction and what you need to do. As I'm going down looking here, I see it like a 43 here and a 43. Those are kind of alarming scores for me also, so I would maybe look at persuasive text as an area. So it's not just only looking over here at your results, it's looking here that maybe there was something they didn't understand. Persuasive text might be something where they're trying to provide a special playground in town for students using all natural, I don't know what, but maybe these students didn't understand the vocabulary. So you need to kind of sit down and look at it and help them out. But I see here that this one's got a 43, but all the other scores are good. But look here, you have 43, a good score, and then a 47. So I'm going to go back up here, and this is expository. So I would say there's some vocabulary issues, and I'm really going to work with this student right here very, very hard and very diligent with them to gain some strategies on their vocabulary and so forth. But I wanted to share these forms with you just as tools that you use to let data drive your instruction, and show you some things that you can implement in your class someday and actually have foundation data and numbers to support what you've said and support whether your students will make AYP. So I hope to help you with this, and if you have any questions, give me a holler, and have a great weekend.